Thank you so much. So thank you, Nozomi, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the colleagues from wherever you are joining. And I thank Nozomi for giving this opportunity to bring together all the real-time apps and having a conversation on that how we can utilize the information in a more proactive way to engage in the plant health management. So thanks for giving this opportunity. I will be giving an update on the Plantex, on behalf of our team. Basically, it is being led by Shrikant, as I mentioned, like he is the digital agriculture head here at Equiset and involved in lot in the Plantex, and along with my colleague Raman, who is joining with me here. And just a minute, I'm not able to move myself. Yes. So just to give a brief about that, what the Plantex is, as all of you know, it's an app for the automated disease detection using the artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's a Indo-German startup actually, and it's an Android app at the moment and not the iOS at the moment, but it is having a very wide coverage and it covers over 45 million farmers. That's the reach of the app at the current update on this thing, and classified at the moment is the 700 pest disease and the nutrient deficiency, the stresses in 60 crops. And if you see the monthly average user of the app, it is 1.3 million. And already this app has been translated into 18 languages, available in 18 languages, including 8 from the India, from the various states. And then very recently, it was introduced in collaboration with the FAO in Saudi Arabia in an Arabic language. And also we launched it in Swahili in Kenya also very recently in 2024 December. So if I say in holistically, this is the most popular agriculture app if we see in the Google Play Store. Now this is the worldwide picture as we were discussing. What is the reach? If you see, it's all over the world. Around, if the frequency is not high, but then still we can see it is touching 160 countries at the moment. And as I said earlier, 18 languages and more than 25 million. Rather, the latest update is, as I mentioned, 40 million farmers are using. And then a lot of conversation, the exchange of the information is happening in more than 90 million advices that has been given so far using this app in the various languages. And as you can see here, the every dot that represent an image that's been taken by a user. And also we can see from this, the South Asia is, especially the India, is totally like it's being widely used in all over India. And also if we see in South America and some of the other countries, it's being used very widely to detect the crop stresses as well as to take an advice from the experts that how to manage that stress. Now, a little bit more about the classification point of view. As I mentioned, that it has 700 classifications so far on the pest and disease, and with an accuracy of around 93%, and I will say more than 85% in some of the cases. In some of the cases, it is more than 93%, which is, I think, quite good at the moment if you see. But at the moment, I say the back end work on through the AI and all, the efficiency and the precision of the detection is increasing, and most likely it will reach to 100% in few years, because the load of data, the type of information that is coming from the backend is quite huge, and that helps in enhancing the efficiency of the app to detect those stresses. And so far it's being used in number of cereal crops, the legumes, fruits and vegetables. All that information of the crops is available in the app. If we download the app, we can see all the information present there. Now, a little bit deeper insight from the metadata, what we have in the Plantex, which can help in the decision support system at the various levels, and then probably how the discussion what we are having today, maybe how we can go a little bit deeper and have some case studies coming from the individual sections. That can be the effort that can be taken from this metadata. But if you see, the top graph that indicates that this is specifically, we have taken it out, one of the study from the Andhra Pradesh state in India. So this indicates, like first graph indicates what is the outbreak of the pest and disease, in which month it is more, irrespective of the stresses. But then it indicates especially the monsoon season, which starts here in July. So the peak of the outbreak of the pest and disease, saying here irrespective of crop at the moment, that is more from the September onwards till December, and that's the kind of where we have a lot of pest and disease in the farmers' fields. So that's one of the information which comes from this. Another is we can see which pest and disease or the stresses are more. Like you can see a list of here the leaf miner, chili leaf curl virus, nitrogen deficiency. So we can see also what is the outbreak coming in the country or in the state, the more hit of which of the stresses are more important in that particular year. Then it also gives a deep dive into whether it is insect damage, fungus, virus, or any deficiencies. The information on that as well can come from this. And as I mentioned, the crops also, we can see which crop is affected a lot. Out of the 60 crops, what has been mapped in the app so far. For example, in the Andhra Pradesh state in India, it says the pepper is the one which shows the more outbreak of the pest and disease in the particular year, kind of thing. And also we can deep down into the location also within the state, that from where, which locality, because all the locations are geo-referenced. It gives us an idea which location is a hotspot for the particular outbreak. So all this information can help us basically in guiding the control measures, in linking it with some decision support tool of the agriculture system, extension systems, etc. And also, if you see the heat map on the right hand side, that indicates the outbreak, which is going to be the hotspot, which is the hotspot at the moment, kind of thing, because it's a real time data. The hits are getting from the farmers, the downloads and the picture updates, etc. That gives us an idea that what's going to be the hotspot in that particular location or the region or the state. So this is the kind of the data set which is available at the moment in the Plantix. And then if we look into the features, though I don't want to go into the deeper detail because that's not the topic we are discussing here, but just to give an idea, what are the different features which is available in the Plantix app? The person can choose the crop of the interest. First thing is to download the app, and then person can choose the interest of the crop, what he's or she is looking for, and then can choose the language, in which like 18 languages are there, the interest of the language or the understanding of the language, that can be again taken from that, and then selection of the language, and then also the calculation of the fertilizer based on the crop that has been selected. It gives us an information on the size of the plot, and the recommendation can come that for that particular size, particular crop, this is the kind of the crop fertilizer that's needed. Also, it gives us a holistic guide from the sowing to the harvesting, step-by-step guide for the crop production as well as the production parameters which is required. And then, of course, the pest and disease detection, which is a very important feature. If the farmers are taking or any users are taking a picture of the plant damage, the Plantix detects that and then recommend based on the resemblance or based on the detection, what is it exactly, the control measures are advised. The most important feature, probably what we have to gather the information, probably which is important from the citizen science, the community, what we are talking here today in the brainstorming, will be the last part. The kind of the questions are being discussed at the community level, the exchange of the chats which is happening between the user, whether it is farmer or any researcher or any practitioner, and then within that the lot of advice and exchange is happening, so anybody can answer to the question, anybody can use that chat window and a kind of use that information, share their knowledge, share the expert advice, etc. That's important feature, and maybe we need to little bit probe into that part more to get an understanding of the community level engagement, what we are looking for in the today's talk or the brainstorming. So this is basically the question which are being discussed in the Plantix in the community section. So in that, the fellow farmers can answer, agri experts can also, I mean, the farmer can raise a question, experts can answer the question, and then local community members can also pitch in, who are part of this discussion. And as you can see, at the side, which is the moving window, you can see a lot of questions are being asked, and several experts are giving an answer to that. So at the moment, there are an excess of like 500 plus agriculture experts coming from the various areas that can engage in this discussion. And it could be anything, the crop advice, the protection advice, or anything. So that a lot of crowdsourcing of the data around the problem solving, that can be a good, I think, start for us when we are talking about the community engagement and the citizen science in this. So this is what I think is will be very interesting to further probe in and have that conversation around that. And also a lot of the training program and demonstrations are being done. Just an example here, it's in India, a lot of awareness program are being conducted with the farming community, which includes a lot of female farmers or the youth and etc. are involved in these kind of awareness and training programs. Again, this can be an important information to gather that how many are understanding basically. So whether the engagement of the youth, engagement of the gender, etc. Maybe the training program can help us. This information can help us in gathering that sort of information. Apart from this, I think this was a Plantix because it's an Indo-German startup. We have a little limitation of the, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have to ask them to give an access of the data, though they agree to provide all this information and generate some scientific R&D kind of thing, that they will be happy to provide an access for this thing. But the Shrikant is also involved in developing one plant health detector also specifically for reset mandate crops now, and wherein we want to specifically include all these parameters, like how many gender, how many youth, how many female farmers, or all those kind of different parameters, which can help us in prioritizing or ranking or engage the community, etc. This is a work in progress at the moment, but we want to take this initiative under this plant health with the CG kind of thing. This kind of approach we are also taking. And now I would like to take you like how the national partners are engaged in this all initiatives. So this is one of the biggest national level plant surveillance system from the ICR. ICR is an Indian Council of Agriculture Research. And in that there is one department of National Center for Integrated Pest Management. They have taken an APIs from the Plantix, from the Vadvani Artificial Intelligence Group, as well as the one or two more such. So and they are building their own this national pest surveillance system. And at the moment, I think this is both as Android as well as iOS, and it has three modules already: the pest identification module covering 61 crops, and then pest surveillance module which covers the 15 crops, and a lot of qualitative and quantitative aspects are there. So because in especially in India, it's a biggest agriculture network system, this kind of government engagements become very important for us. And it will be probably from the CG perspective also to engage with these national partners and leveraging the data, co-collaborating with them, creating, joining the hands with them, we will be able to get a lot of information, what we are looking for, the engagement of youth, gender, etc., everything. So that's the kind of the system which is available, and since it has an API of the Plantix and all, it is very easy to gather that information, which will be useful for our today's topic. So I think this is what I have, Nozomi, and a brief update on the Plantix. But yeah, maybe some food for thought or some questions for discussions at later stage. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone. Well, once again, thank you, Nozomi, and the whole team of part of the CGR for the invitation. So today, we're going to talk about a little bit of the work that we have been doing with Tumaini app, Dr. Michael and me over the past a little over 3 years. and see how this relates moreover to the use cases within the gender and the data that we're generating in this platform. So for those of you that don't know us, Banana or Tumaini app is an AI-powered app that it is specialized in or that uses the knowledge of genetic resources and also computer vision and artificial intelligence to detect diseases in banana crops. So right now, as you can see, we initially started with Tumaini about 6 years ago, where it was just simply you can use the app and take a picture. And most of my work has been improving the app and adapting it into the user's requirements and to what people need to actually use the tool in the field and what needs to be is actually more part of the detection process in every day to day. So here you can actually see a little bit of the contrast between the what it looked like before and what it looks like now. Sorry. You can see that now it's not only just take a picture and you get a detection, but it's more we segmented the diseases based on the region of occurrence. So for example, we work with specific diseases for Africa, specific diseases for Latin America, and then we also incorporated sort of like a step-by-step detection process. So since because of the characteristics of the crop, bananas, they normally tend to have very similar symptoms between diseases. So what we did now is that we use a step-by-step detection process that guides the user into checking different parts of the plant. And then the user is able to get a more precise detection based on the key symptoms of each disease. And then finally, we also we're working on, or we have released the option to map the plants. So this means not only you're able to perform your detection, but then you're also able or capable of generating this data of where the infected plants are located, and you're able to share this data within your partners or your networks. So then all of this data that we're generating, especially the GPS data, the way we use it just to show it is that we have our own online platform. It's called TumainiAIapp.org. And here you can also access information. And then we actually have or the possibility to see two types of maps, like what we call the general map, which is information that we have collected that is publicly available, that people have shared with us, or that we've collected, or people have shared us through like field surveys. And so here what we do is that we can, visualize the information, or this is also data that we've collected. And the way that you can see this sort of like the same idea as through hotspots, like it calculates the banana plant density, and then it shows it in the map. You can see both satellite, ground level. Right now we have over, actually we updated last week, so now we're over 82,000 mapped banana plants. Um, we're working in over 19 countries. And yeah, and the idea is sort of like to use the app as a collector tool to confirm identified diseases, and then to generate this GPS data that can lead to further data analysis. And then overall, looking at the system and where we're focusing right now, it's not only that we have, for ground level image analysis, we have the Tumaini app, but then when you look at a broader picture, what we want to get to, we're also working on the uh, aerial platform. So it's an aerial platform because we use drones and AI also to identify and locate infected plants. And then in the end, this whole system it translates or it goes into the disease mapping platform that I just showed you, with the idea or the intention of detecting more effectively banana diseases, hopefully reducing costs and time in collecting and doing the field scanning process. And overall, the amount of data that we're generating, we are hopeful that maybe through these kinds of partnerships or through these kinds of meetings, we can start to take the next step to see how we can provide a further analysis of the data that we're generating. In terms of the data, and then starting to think about more of the questions that Nozomi was asking about. So the data that we generate is, there's actually two data inputs. The first one is the data that the app naturally generates on the Google Play console. So in this case, for example, right now the app, this was from about 3 months ago, but it's a little over 15,000 downloads that we have had historically. We're present in over 72 countries, which just focusing Tumaini has been an app that focuses only on bananas until about last year when we released a version for common beans. So 72 countries. Again, it limits sort of the scope because of the crops that we're working with, which we can't really reach, or it's not very common or likely that we're going to reach a worldwide scope. But even though 72 countries have been participating, with the main countries being India, which is over half of our um, participation, then it's mostly countries, banana producing countries in Latin America, so Ecuador, Colombia, Peru. Kenya has become really popular this year. It's about almost 9 to 10% right now of our share in downloads. And then finally, the rest of the world is about 20% of our users. Um, so this is the data that we can generate from Google Play Console. Of course, you can also get different types of metrics, but this is more or less what we tend to focus. And then also one of the things that we added recently when we released one of the new versions of the app was when people um, start to use the app,
Mm,
because we know that the value of this type of data of who is using the app.
mm,
We start to ask
mm,
questions about to do a small registration form, which is in some cases it has been working very well because people, they have no problem registering, especially with small farmers. We have seen that they are a little bit more hesitant, or sometimes it's a little bit especially with people who aren't as tech savvy as others, to fill out a complete form in the app in their cell phone in the middle of the field just to get to use that app. So that's one of the issues that we've been having also. But overall, the information that we're collecting right now is where does the person work, if they're associated to an institution, universities, um, maybe a national, for example, here you have like a coffee producing national guild. Then you also check what the person does, if he's working more on research or he's more on field surveillance, or if he's a farmer. Then information like their name, their gender, also a point of contact, which we normally ask in email, and then the country where they are registering from. So with this, you can some initial analysis that we actually shared with Nozomi, I think a few months ago.
mm,
So right now, for example, this was launched about a year ago, June 2024,
mm,
and right now, the people who have registered for the app, it's around 900 users. Also, people who have registered for what we call the quick version of the Tumaini app. Um, which is just a very shorter form that is designed for small farmers, just to like give their name and the region where they are, and so they can quickly use the
mm,
app. And overall, these users, the way that we've found that they distribute around gender, it's more or less 68% of them are male, 31%
mm,
identifies females, and 1% is others. And then again, the countries where the Tumaini the is mostly present is around Latin America, or sorry, India is the main country, but then countries around Central Africa, and also, as I mentioned, the banana producing countries in Latin America. Um, so then here, starting to get a little bit more into the topics um of this whole seminar, is the idea of what issues are we having, or what types of data are we generating, as you guys saw.
mm,
Um, so this is actually part of a field study that Dr. Aman Omondi did in Benin, I think last year,
mm,
or during this year and last year. More or less, some of the things that we have, I know he can go a little bit deeper into that, was the idea of having people struggling that their phone resolution, or the resolution of their cameras, was normally lower than 8 megapixels. So, and this
mm,
actually made sense because the AI data that we use to train the models, or the databases that we use, were normally from 12 megapixels over. So of course there's sort of like a gap between the use case in some countries, compared to the development phase that we've done at CIET. Then also limited access to smartphones and internet, especially among women. Also, one of the things that we can acknowledge is that the app recently has become very text heavy. So the idea, what we're thinking about here, is start
mm,
to use, improve a little bit the UI, the UX, and make it more visual. So especially for people, with low literacy and those types of areas, to be able to access the app
mm,
and use it in a more quick, more swiftly way. Um, Language barriers, especially in smaller regions within Africa, because right now Tumaini is available in 5 languages: English, Spanish, French, Tamil, and also Swahili. So one of the things that we're focusing on is, right now, if we have points of contact in these different countries where there are sort of smaller languages, in this case, like Kinyarwanda, Dr. Rahman has actually been helping us translate the app into this language. We should be releasing, hopefully, this or next week. Also, difficult installation and registration processes for users. So again, users, we found that they are typically not very excited into having to fill out and give their data to use an app. Um, few users are confident enough to use the app independently. Again, it's because we found that it is normally related to the complexity and also the amount of text and options or things that Tumaini can do. And then lack of ongoing support or peer networking installations. And then one of them also that we found was the access to the internet. So in this case, was also what we did, or our solution was that we released an offline version of Tumaini. This means that instead of having people, the need to be connected to the internet all of the time, they can just simply download the offline version, and then the models will be installed locally on their cell phones. So this means that they can go into a field, even if they have no internet, they can still take a picture. The phone can scan, the models will run locally, and then they will get the prediction for this. So I think this just shows a little bit about overall the information that well, I think what I want to do is more or less show what Tomine does, the information that we're generating, sort of the issues that we're having, which I hope we can further discuss, and more or less the ideas that we're having on potential collaborations and how we can continue to address and make this app even more usable. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much indeed, Nozomi. So I want to give the perspective from the public sector. So Plant Village is a public sector outfit out of Penn State University. And Penn State is a US land grant university. So its function is to provide farmers, in this case in Pennsylvania, with knowledge on crop diseases and dealing with increasing yield. We've taken that model as Plant Village at Penn State to be a land grant university in a phone. So our vision is to have the same quality of knowledge that you'd find in a US land grant, but everywhere. All of our data is Creative Commons license 3.0 or above. We are a created global public good, means anybody can use it, public and private, but we don't just give our data away because we don't want people to take it, become a company and sell themselves to Bayer, Monsanto, Google, or whomever. So it's curated. It's available to certain people for research purposes. And we have about 8 apps. We built a lot of the apps for FAO. Due to the current funding crisis with USAID, we've stopped that. And FAO has rather disappointingly gone in a different direction, back to using ODK and Kobo. We can discuss that. But mostly we have the Plant Village main app, and we just released on the Play Store Plant Village Food yesterday. Our audience is very different. We target individuals, predominantly women, about 75% women, who are living in an analog world, often without electricity in sub-Saharan Africa. So with IITA, for example, we developed this system whereby we are twice as good as human extension workers. We benchmark that, we publish it, and this is now working offline in someone's phone. In fact, it's been offline since about 2018, 2019. It was one of the early functions we had because that's critically important in the global south. Now, the type of what you've just seen there was computer vision. Our lead AI engineer, Pete Poklowski, but also with Milsort Jembu in Kenya, have been developing segmentation models. So we can run it in the phone, but we can also bring it up into our cloud platform. This is work that we do with CIMIT through Gates funding. So we can use segmentation systems as well as computer vision. We're really trying to get beyond just diagnostics. So this is something we've done with SIP, particularly with Jan on the call and others, and Jorge and Rede. But in this case, we got late blight being diagnosed and healthy. But because in an area we would know the variety of potato, we've been able to work on systems whereby we would reduce the amount of spraying which is needed. So SIP have shown that through this very, very effective tool, they can reduce by about 30% the amount of sprays which happen. So that's a very useful approach. So decision support systems as part of the overall tool. And we've got lots of different crops, of course, and just throwing in another one on coffee. So part of the question you asked, Nozomi, is how do we use the data and what's the function of it? So many people may have been following this emergence of banana bunchtop virus in Tanzania. It's not a new disease. It's been in Congo since 1953. But it emerged or came across the border. And of course, when it comes into a new location, the extension officers don't have an understanding of it. So what we do is we build an AI system, but then we also enable the users to be able to map it. So here's a map of those records. So you get an offline diagnosis, but you're also able to use it as government officials. I'll just go into Kisii County here. So in Kenya, you can see a record here. This is on a 10 by 10 kilometer square. This will go onto the platform. And so then you have the platform here, and then people can confirm or reject it, check to see if the AI is doing what it should be doing. You can see the AI detection here, and we have this ability to also pipe it out to say experts in CG, for example, who would then come in and confirm it. So that's a functionality whereby we can use this mapping function to have real-time updates. So we want to see surveillance going out into county offices and regional government offices. So in this case, we have maps of weather coming in for Kenya. We've got the use of the tool here. And then we're also able to input onto country pages different information that's useful for government. So some of this is just basic regression models, some is machine learning, some is more advanced machine learning, and then ultimately some is also AI. So we use multiple modalities of AI. It's computer vision, it's spatial temporal machine learning, but we also use language. Language is a really important one for us. So if we go to another country, Malawi, it's a good example for looking at how we're using that. Here we have somebody asking a question today, and this person is in Malawi and has a problem. Now, we don't have a specific AI for this one, not a module inside the app, but because of the really great tools, and we're using Gemini for those who are interested, we're able to send that image to the cloud. And once we send it to the cloud, we can diagnose it, chewing insects, but we're also able to look into other characteristics of this particular area. So we look, for example, to see the weather, the soil, and give information back. And we do that in Chichewa. And then one of the issues is to really improve the language capabilities of the app. That's really critically important to make sure, because a lot of words are unknown and unusual. So we work, I saw Leonard from our Malawi team is on the call. We work with a lot of local people and experts, linguistic experts, to improve the functionality of that. So we rather see that the outcome of all of this is a way to build up an understanding of the field. So how can we understand where farmers are located and what is the output of that? So if I go, for example, to Helen here, one of the farmers, I can actually edit her particular farm. So if I wanted to, I can remove this and I can choose a file to upload. So you can actually put a KML file straight on her land, and then you could follow that across time. And that might be important because if that was a new variety of cassava, for example, you'd want to see the uptake of it or look at different details of her field. Because for every field we look at, we actually collect a lot of different data. This is from MODIS and Landsat satellites through FAO's WOPR system. This is NASA. This is a global forecasting system. So this is saying that the moisture is good. And then we have all of the information here on soil characteristics. So it's not just diagnosing with an image, it's building up a richer data set on this particular farmer. And then this allows us to have the functionality whereby we can respond to threats as they're emerging, and then also with solutions. We see the building of this platform for countries. So this is a really cool project funded by Norway, Medifis, a lot of partners like IITA and CABI and others. But most importantly, the local partners are uploading the data sets and using them. So here's a tool that one of the local partners, Chikonde, made. And in this case, he's taking data from Plant Village and then being able to analyze it himself. And I think that's really great because local partners are then building the tools that give them the ownership over it. I think that's a critically important part. And then we ourselves build tools. So this is one that we built. Derek Moore and the team built this. And so in order to see where we're seeing relative use of it, and of course, we've had other speakers talk about this. This allows us to predict and see outputs and stresses. Now, the global community like CIMMYT and University of Cambridge and others are really good at this sort of prediction and forecasting. So this is one of the work that we're doing with a project funded by Gates Foundation, whereby we can do these predictions, which in this case is a meteorological prediction. There's also AI predictions. So we can move in different levels to help countries deal with these stressors. Now, I mentioned the land-grant universities. So this is something we're building for Penn State, one of the best extension systems in the world. And so in this case, I'm just asking a question. I can see the date. I've got the location. I can ask a bunch of questions about that, pull in the soil, look at images. So multimodal systems. But what's really cool here is that we can also go directly to information. In this case, it's behind a paywall, but you can have information directly. This is retrieve and augmented generation, something that Digital Green are doing a good job of. And I think this is really important. It enables extension officers to be able to have responses. Ultimately, though, Nozomi, you're asking about what we should do. We should sell solutions. Diagnosing the problem is not sufficient. We know everybody has fall armyworm. We don't need to diagnose fall armyworm. This is work that we've been doing through our innovation lab, releasing biological control, really excellent work with our Plant Village Plus worker cooperative in Kenya. And it's increasing the yields very successfully, but there's a lot of things like biochar or storage solutions. And this is leading to, in this case, an 86% increase, or in this case, about a 70% increase. I think that's an important point. Sell solutions, and then on the back of those solutions, you can leverage funds to bring solutions to local government offices. So there's a lot of problems in our system. There's a lot of extraction from companies, large organizations which are not building capacity locally. And so what we've been trying to do is build this capacity into government offices. That was Tanzania, this is Malawi, and they become really proud and they own it. That's critically important. And we also do a lot of computer science training that we won't go into, and data training. This is a nice example from Nepal, where we've had a rent-free accommodation for 5 years. So I think this should be the solution, whereby we're thinking of these diagnostic tools being publicly owned, not exploited by private sector partners out to increase investment gains, but also thinking of it as a package. You help somebody diagnose a problem, but you're quickly coming in with the solution on top of that. Thank you.
The current topic of gender. So what can we do for improving access to the apps for female users? Because as you see in Tumaini apps, 30% is only female users.
Yes. Okay. I think on the side of gender, we have done a bit of work in both Benin and in Rwanda. And what we see are quite structured issues that are limiting or influencing access to these apps. For example, we begin with the crop as an asset that is belonging to the household and who has control of it, and down to the crop and the ownership, the management roles and the gender roles about crop management, and then differentiation and rules about specific crops, and then down to the tools that are being used to access potential solutions in crop protection for these specific crops. But the other thing that we see is basically access to basic literacy that is not around asset management, but is around the structural issues that work within the society. Already Juan had actually listed a list of issues that are addressed for Tumaini, so I will not go back there again. And finally, we have the rural household versus the urban households, where in many of the African countries, you have the main breadwinner going off to the actual day job while the spouses are left in the village. And they are left there in many cases with low access to technology. So we have ownership, technology, literacy, and then the supporting infrastructure issues that seem to favor or seem to hinder access of especially women, but also of low resource farmers to these technological options that we have. Now, one thing that we have tried to work on recently is language. And this is something that I would really like us to think through nicely. In Benin, for example, while many people are capable of speaking French, that is not the language they interact with their mobile applications on or in. So that is opposed to Rwanda, where a number of people would be fast literate in their local language, and therefore translation would access it to them. That might not be the situation in Benin, because the language is not phonetically written, and so is much more complex to understand than, say, French or English or whichever other language. So we are still trying to see with Benin if this would open up opportunities for access to these technologies, but we would like to collect data. After translation, did we have an improvement? Because that is the part that would give us a reward of, or map the reward of the actual diagnostic step that we took. So in brief, those are the observations we made, but I would be happy to take any question. Thank you.
David, please.
Yeah, I think you need to just buy women phones. It's very simple.
Yes.
And then pay for young people from the neighborhood to help them use the phones, and then pay for data. Those three things. It's very simple. And we don't do that because we buy researchers' computers and we spend a lot of money on buildings in DC, etc. But if we took all the money we're spending on, CG buildings or FAO buildings and put that into buying women phones, we would see a difference. We had 75% of our farmers being women. It's not difficult. It's a choice that we make.
Thank you. We also had excellent data from Plant Village that women can really benefit from when we have a specific intervention for supporting women.
Too much time to talk about everything. I'm Leroy Mwanzia, Head of Digital and Data at SIP. So I just really wanted to show one statistic because Plant Village is exception. When you speak from a data perspective, real user data is very important, as you can see from all the apps. It's promising, but it's precarious. So according to the State of the Digital Agriculture Sector report, only 26% of digital agriculture users are women. In Africa, it can go a bit higher to about 31%. And most of these apps don't collect any other kind of disaggregated data for things like disability, ethnicity, or literacy level, right? So we're in a loop where we have limited access to biased data, which leads to bias science, which will reinforce the exclusion. And this is fundamentally a design problem. We need human-centered approaches that starts with the diverse users need to just deal with the technical problem. And unless we change how we collaborate, our digital tools will continue to serve some people more than others. And as I said, we're probably not speaking about the applications we've been talking about here. I know about Plant Village because I'm from Kenya. So for example, they always have use cases with women, so Mama Muhogo and stuff like that. But not all apps are like that. So the real question is about scaling and systemizing these efforts. How do we restructure the broader system to ensure that app developers, plant health scientists, data scientists, extension, all of us who are working in parallel can work in partnership. And starting from the data, from how we collect the data, how we co-create the knowledge, how do we deliver equitable impact to the farmer? So as I said, we don't have enough time to talk about all this now. I'm very passionate about gender and data, but I'll just mention three things that we can do from a data perspective to be able to improve this. So one is multi-stakeholder data stewardship. Two is collaborative use cases. And the Digital Transformation Accelerator in the CGR is looking at that. And three is gender responsive loops. So for the first one, I think, as you said, we need to make sure women are in the middle of everything we do, and not only women, but anyone else who's not covered by the youth and people like that. We should work around fair data, but we need to make sure that when we're talking about these shared data standards, when you're talking about ethical use, we need to make sure that there's disaggregation by gender, by age, by geography. As we promote fair, accessible data sets, we need to make sure that we include all these other people as well. And it can be a neutral person like CGR or FAO or someone else who tries to convene these people together, because we need everyone. We need the private sector, we need the public sector, and we need the research sectors. We can't do without each other. So we need to find a way to bring all this data together to work for the farmer. So that would be the first one. The second one would be what I'm calling collaborative use case incubators. As I said, we need to take a human-centered design. We need to quickly experiment and see how we can solve women's needs in terms of dealing with plant health using these tools. And I like, as I said, how Plant Village is doing it. But this is something that we can actually do. And if you look at the Digital Transformation Accelerator, they have something called the Action Lab. And one thing in the Action Lab is they want to take a human-centered design, and they have specific use cases that they want to do to solve problems. So, and also Equisat is a good example of this, where you have incubators that try to solve farmer problems. But with these incubators, they have to be collaborative, and they have also from the foundation to include women in the discussion. And the final one, because this is the last one, Nozomi, we need to have gender responsive feedback loops. Yeah, as I said, human-centered design. We need to ensure that women, farmers, local extension agents, community knowledge holders are not just data sources, because that's the problem we do sometimes with the CGR. They just provide us with data, and we're not providing back any value. Yeah, so we need to make sure that they are co-interpreters and validators of the science with us. So we need to include them in validating the models, shaping recommendations, closing the data loop from analysis to real-world decision-making, and make sure we are embodying that human-centered design of any solutions that we have. So I'll leave with a rallying call that the apps are ready, the data is there, but unless we build the bridges through data stewardships, through inclusive innovation spaces, through local validation with the women, we risk reinforcing those very gaps that we are aiming to close. So let's move from biased data sets, because the apps may not be biased, but the data sets are, to inclusive science. So I'll stop there, Nozomi, and I'll be ready to take any questions as well.
The training for extensionists or farmers is mainly for them to detect the disease. So on our part as researchers, it means that the data that comes from them may not be of much use on our side as researchers, except to just tell that the disease was present and that is it. And in some cases, it might get worse with the recommendations they give. Because if a farmer uses it and it indicates that, okay, you have cassava mosaic disease, and the recommendation that follows is that, okay, you need to get clean planting material. So now, okay, the farmer might think that, okay, they need now to, they have the disease, they need to get clean planting material, but it hasn't indicated what incidence and what severity. The farmer could have only picked like maybe 2 plants out of a whole acre or half an acre of 1,000 plants. So then that now becomes a bit tricky, and the severity is also not there. If you are going to see like low severity, sometimes you cannot say that you need to control. So that is where another challenge is. And now for us on our research, this is very good data. It's a lot of data, but then it cannot give any guidance, any recommendation. We cannot say like the government can use this data to tell the trend of diseases in the country, or even to see like, okay, we have been promoting improved varieties. Is this trend changing or not? We cannot see that trend because the data is just being collected by focusing on diseased plants. So maybe there should be a way that these tools are promoted in a way that there is a balance. The farmer gains, and even as researchers, we get some good data that can use to guide the government. Thank you.